You're watching the English newscast here on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamima. These are today's top stories. Prime Minister-designate Saad Hariri ends consultations with parliamentary blocs following 2 days of talks over the formation of a new government. Iraqi special forces throw themselves back into battle after first foray into Mosul was blunted by stiffer than expected resistance from extremists. And more than 100 migrants are rescued from overcrowded boats in the Mediterranean Sea by the Italian Coast Guard. Prime Minister-designate Saad Hariri has ended consultations with parliamentary blocs following 2 days of talks over the formation of a new government, ahead of his meeting with President Michel Aoun this afternoon. Speaking to reporters after the consultations, Hariri said, quote, "The atmosphere was positive. There was a lot of cooperation between me, Speaker Nabih Berri, and His Excellency, the President Michel Aoun. A lot of parties have asked for sovereign ministerial portfolios, but this is normal." Hariri will head to the presidential palace at 5 p.m. to meet with Aoun to discuss the government formation, a task he hopes to accomplish as soon as possible. The Prime Minister-designate said political parties will be represented in the cabinet in proportion to the size of the parliamentary bloc. He expressed hope that a new government will be formed before Lebanon's Independence Day on November 22nd. The General Security has arrested 2 men in Mount Lebanon for alleged links to militant groups. The national news agency says both were Syrian nationals in their 30s. The General Security carried out further investigations with them before referring them to the judiciary. Lebanon is faced with enormous environmental challenges. For one, a garbage crisis broke out last summer after the closure of the country's main landfill site. As rubbish piled up across the capital, Syrian refugee Kazakhs saw a need for change and an opportunity. While the Lebanese job market is not open to foreigners in all sectors, Syrian refugees with residency are legally allowed to work in the environmental and cleaning sectors. However, many Syrians struggle to find work amid a limited number of job opportunities. More in this report.
Gharam is one of 6 Syrian refugees, now working women. Shifting through recyclables is their lifeline. It is their first ever paid job.
يعني الوقت اللي كنت بلا شغل كنت عم عاني كثير من المصروف كثير يعني، بس وقت انه جيت دلوني على هذا الشغل واجيت. اول شيء شغل كثير مريح واللي عم نشتغل معهم كثير مناح.
The women are all single mothers. They lost their husbands in the war. For them, this work ensures their livelihood. And it also helps the country.
من ضمن الشق الاجتماعي اللي عم نشتغل عليه، نحن فكرنا انه نخلق فرص عمل ونحول من أزمة النزوح الموجودة بلبنان من طاقة سلبية إلى طاقة إيجابية.
The company employs 17 refugee women and men, most of them Syrians. Lebanon's garbage crisis broke out last summer after the closure of its main landfill. Rubbish piled up across the city. The crisis created work opportunities for refugees.
شغل حلو وعم يفيدنا بالمرتبة الأولى إلنا، وكمان يعني إنه عم يفيد الشعب اللبناني إنه يعني هلا إحنا عندهم أزمة بشغلة النفايات وهيك، ونحن عم نساعدهم.
Most of Gharam's salary goes to pay the rent. She still struggles to meet all her family's needs.
وبتفوتي بقى على بيتك، مو إنه مثلا بتقعدي ببيت بترتاحي، تفوتي بدك تطبخي. الأولاد أمي بدنا، أمي ما بدنا، هاي جابت لي، هاي ما جابت لي، ليش بنت خالتي عم تعمل هيك؟
Despite the difficulties, Gharam's chance to work provides some security and hope for a better future.
Coming up next, singers Beyonce and husband Jay-Z urge fans to vote for Hillary Clinton. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Iraqi special forces threw themselves back into battle after first foray into Mosul was blunted by stiffer than expected resistance from extremists defending the birthplace of their so-called caliphate. While the elite counterterrorism service fought ISIS in the streets of Mosul, the army and federal police attacked one of the last sizable towns on the more distant southern front. The mass exodus feared by aid groups of some of the million-plus civilians still trapped in Mosul has yet to materialize, but the number of people displaced by the battle has grown sharply in recent days. Deborah Lauterbeck reports.
Iraqi forces recaptured 6 districts of eastern Mosul Friday, expanding the Iraqi army's foothold in the Islamic State bastion a day after its leader told his jihadist followers there could be no retreat. Territory taken by the government still amounts to just a fraction of the sprawling city, which held 2 million people before it was captured by Islamic State in 2014. But against this backdrop, there are still signs of joy. Some Iraqis fleeing Mosul are reunited with family members at a refugee camp. Years of turmoil end in a moment of joy, at least for some.
This is my family. These are my people. I cannot describe the feeling. Even my voice fails me. I've lost my voice. I've not seen them for 2.5 years. They left in the beginning of the crisis, but I stayed in Mosul. This was our fate. It was terrible.
Islamic State fighters have been ordered to stand their ground, with leadership calling for, quote, total war. Mosul is by far the largest city under Islamic State control. The battle to drive out the fighters has prompted the biggest ground operation in Iraq since the U.S.-led invasion in 2003. And it will help decide Islamic State's fate in Iraq, a group that has defied the world for 2 years.
Moving on to Turkey, an Istanbul court has ordered the imprisonment of 9 staff from the opposition Cumhuriyet newspaper in an intensifying crackdown a day after the leaders of the country's main pro-Kurdish party were also jailed. The arrests added to growing international alarm over the use of a state of emergency implemented in the wake of the failed July 15 coup against critics of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The Cumhuriyet staff detained earlier this week, including some of the most prominent names in Turkish journalism, will now be held behind bars ahead of a trial, a date for which has yet to be set. 9 MPs from the opposition pro-Kurdish People's Democratic Party were also jailed on terror charges. The Italian Coast Guard released video of migrants being rescued from an overcrowded rubber boat adrift in the Mediterranean Sea. The footage was filmed during rescue operations on Friday. There were 130 migrants on board the dinghy, but no further details were released. Democrat Hillary Clinton campaigned with a nighttime concert in Cleveland, Ohio, headlined by rapper Jay-Z. He was joined by rappers Big Sean, Chance the Rapper, and J. Cole, and by his wife, popular singer Beyoncé, as a surprise guest. Beyoncé and Jay-Z both addressed the audience, urging them to vote for Clinton.
Less than 100 years ago, women did not have the right to vote. Look how far we've come from having no voice to being on the brink of making history. Again, by electing the first woman president. Yes. But we have to vote. The world looks to us as a progressive country that leads change. 8 years ago, I was so inspired to know that my nephew, a young black child, could grow up knowing his dreams could be realized by witnessing a black president in office. And now, we have the opportunity to create more change. I want my daughter to grow up seeing a woman lead our country. And know that her possibilities are limitless.
This other guy, I don't have any ill will towards him, but his conversation is divisive, and that's not an evolved soul to me. So he cannot be my president. He cannot be our president. Once you divide us, you weaken us. We're stronger together. Once you divide us, you weaken us. We are stronger together. And without further ado, I would like to introduce to you the next president of the United States, Ms. Hillary Clinton.
Well, we have unfinished business to do, more barriers to break, and with your help, a glass ceiling to crack once and for all. I want to be a president who helps everybody fulfill their God-given potential. And I can't do that unless on Tuesday we decide what kind of country we want to be. Will we reject a dark and divisive vision for our future and embrace a hopeful, inclusive, unifying America?
U.S. President Barack Obama chastised supporters at a rally for Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton in North Carolina as tensions spiked when a supporter of Republican opponent Donald Trump stood up and began shouting. The man was quickly drowned out by screaming and booing by the crowd, which was predominantly African American. Oh no. We apologize for this technical difficulty, and on that note, we end our bulletin for today. Now for a quick recap of our top stories. Prime Minister-designate Saad Hariri ends consultations with parliamentary blocs following 2 days of talks over the formation of a new government. Iraqi special forces throw themselves back into battle after first foray into Mosul was blunted by stiffer than expected resistance from extremists. And more than 100 migrants are rescued from overcrowded boats in the Mediterranean Sea by the Italian Coast Guard. Those are your top stories for this Saturday. I'm Linda Tamimina. Thank you all for watching.